I got my first big tournament, my first A tier coming up this weekend. So I figured I'd do my in the bag before I really get the season rolling. I'm leaving tomorrow. This is kind of what I got for the weather. So I guess we're both gonna experience this wonderful Western New York weather together. Just to get things started, I got my Bag Boy quad cart here. Picked this up last year right before the AFDO tournament. It's just been great for long rounds with a lot of sun. Want to try and save my legs. You know, I want to play disc golf for a long time. I don't want to kill my legs carrying this on my back all day if I don't have to. So, you know, for some courses you need the bag and some you don't. I would say a good example of the difference between two courses like that would be Smuggler's Notch, where on Brewster you want to carry a bag around, and then on Fox Run you're probably going to be out there for like 4 or 5 hours. The sun's going to be coming down on you. This thing comes in pretty handy. Just like last year, I've got my fully customized pound Octothorpe. Loving this bag. Highly recommend getting one if you have the funds. Let's get started with the putter pouch. First of all, putting putters. I think this time last year I was throwing whales. Now I am throwing P2s. I decided that I don't like beaded putters anymore. And I also switched to a putting grip where my finger, instead of being on the front, kind of like someone like Paul Macbeth, I'm now putting my finger under the putter, and I just like the feel of a non-beaded putter with that grip a heck of a lot better. So I'm throwing P2s. I like wiping the stamps off of my putters now also, so that's why they look like this. These are the special edition Flex 3 P2s. I also have some Flex 2 P2s. These are a great mixture of a nice, good, tacky feeling, but also being nice and stiff, so I can get a good release out of my hands. Really a huge fan of these. Pretty excited to use them all year long, and my putting is feeling awesome. I have 3 approach discs. I have like kind of 2 categories of approach discs. These are going to be a lot of forehand, and then I have some other putters that I'm going to throw mostly backhand. These I'll also throw backhand, but I kind of like to think of them as forehand discs, even though they go both ways. So let's start with the one that I have a single of. This is the Zone. I'm only running 1 zone, and that's just because for an approach disc, it just has a little bit more glide than my other ones, and can just push a little bit further. Like if I'm throwing, I have the Toro over there. If I'm throwing the Toro like 230, I'm throwing the Zone 250, 260. Also, it's a bit gummier, so it can have a little bit better ground reaction. This is the Crystal Flex Zone, the Brody Smith Get Freaky Zone. I got this last year and put it back in the bag now because it just adds a little bit more versatility to my bag. The other 2 are Toros. So I have this orange Toro that I just picked up at the beginning of this year. Super overstable, Champion Toro, can't go wrong. Very, very reliable, especially in wind like this. I know I'm getting up and down anywhere inside 200 or like 250. And then I have this red Toro that I started throwing at the beginning of last year, beat it in pretty good. It kind of flies straight for me if I put it on like a flat line, and then I know it's just gonna dump out at the end. Or if I wanna throw kind of a hyzer line but not have that crazy reaction early on, it's a little bit better for that. Now we'll go to the backhand putters. I'm not throwing any of these forehand unless I'm in a weird situation and I gotta throw like a pitch out or something. So for most overstable, I have this C-Line Color Glow P2. This is the Discmania Open P2 from last year. Nice and overstable. I can throw it flat and know it's gonna get a little bit of a finish. Not the glidiest disc, so really good for backhand approaches or backhand tee shots when I'm throwing like 250. Really nice disc. Been finding it's pretty useful in my bag, and I'm throwing it more and more the more comfortable I get with it. Next up is my neutral throwing putter. If you've seen my video about this, you know how much I like it. This is just the pink one that I picked up. This is a Opto X Pure. This is the Kristen Tatar version of it. I got this nice sort of shiny rainbow foil. Super cool disc, flies straight, flies on hyzer, flies on anhyzer, really does whatever you want it to do. It's one of those discs that, like the name suggests, is just pure. It's gonna go on whatever line you put it on. So super versatile, using this on all sorts of different holes, in the woods, in the open, you know, whatever I need it for. Last up is a Electron Firm Envy. This is the Envy I was throwing for the latter half of last year's season. Pretty beat up, nice and reliable hyzer flip disc. Really not using this as much as I was last year because it's more understable. I just kind of try to cycle one of these in my bag as often as I can, and once they get too understable, I'll swap them out for another one or start filtering a new one in. But for now, this one's doing what I want it to. Good for turnover shots and really good for hyzer flip shots in the woods. Yeah, can't go wrong with the Envy. All right, next up we'll go to mid-ranges. Got a couple of changes in the mid-range department. One disc that hasn't changed is my ESP Buzz. This guy's pretty flippy. I beat it up for the past year. It's gonna hyzer flip for me really well. I can throw it like pretty much close to out to 400. I can put it on turnover lines, get a hold turnover the whole way wherever I'm putting it. Just a nice, like, kind of understable, but not crazy understable mid-range. I've found that I don't really need a crazy understable mid-range. If I want this thing to turn over, I can give it that Anheuser, and it's just gonna go how I want it to. Next up, replacing my Z Buzz is the Discmania MD3. Main reason I'm going with the MD3 this year is because I really, really like the feel of the C-line plastic for Discmania, and the profile of this disc just feels a little bit better than the Buzz for me, and it seems to have just a touch more overstability as the flight numbers suggest. So the Z Buzz would kind of beat in and be very similar to my ESP Buzz, where this is going to have a little bit of integrity for overstability compared to the Buzz, even as it starts to beat in, and I can kind of rotate these as much as I want. Also great for turnovers, good for just straight shots, not really throwing out a lot of hyzers, but like kind of slight flexes that are going to like ride and slightly come back, or just straight shots when I want a little bit of fade at the end. And last up, this is going to be replacing my Buzz OS. This is the Pyro. I pretty much think, and I think this is this is Prism Neutron plastic. This disc is pretty much better than the Buzz OS in every way possible. It feels better in my hand. It feels like it has more glide to it when I throw it. It's not quite as overstable, which I don't really want out of a mid-range. Like, I don't want a mid-range like a Cayman or a Mutant or something where it's going to be super overstable. I'd rather just throw my Toro or like a Firebird for something like that. This just pushes straight, has a nice reliable finish. I can flex it and it's always going to come out. It's pretty much anytime I want to throw something, I would throw my zone on, but I don't want to throw a fairway or a control driver on. This is what I'm looking for. And the more I have kept it in my bag, the more I'm finding uses for it, where typically this slot in my bag, the overstable mid-range, I just was never throwing. This is, again, not being used a ton, but more than I was the Buzz OS that was in my bag. All right, we're gonna go to one of the larger sections in my bag, fairway drivers, or as I like to call them, 7 speeds, because they're all 7 speeds. I have 3 sections of fairway drivers. We're gonna have 2 understable, 2 neutral, and then 2 overstable. And then within those, they're gonna be a little bit different between the 2 of them. So for my understable, I have 2 Discmania FDs. For my most understable, I have the Swirly S-Line Ella Hansen Tour Series FD. Pretty much a little bit flippier than a C-Line FD out of the box. Not much to say about it. I'm just gonna put this on hyzer. It's gonna flip up. I can put it on turnover lines. Not really throwing this forehand ever, but it's just like a nice understable disc, and I imagine as it beats in more, it's gonna kind of just fill that understable slot more and more. And then to complement it, I have a C-Line FD, just a little bit more stable. I can throw it pretty flat and have it hold that. I could even like put a little bit of flex on it and it will come out as long as I'm not cranking on it too much. Not really throwing these into a headwind pretty much ever, but they're really nice discs. You can throw them on like pretty much anything from 350 to 450, and you're gonna be able to do a lot with them. They're just a little bit more understable, so the situations you use them in may be a little finicky depending on like wind and stuff. Like a day like today, I'm probably not pulling this out of my bag ever. Then we'll get on to my neutral fairways. This is pretty much all reliable for me. We have the Champion Eagle. I have this purple Eagle that's a factory second that I picked up a couple years ago. Pretty much just a straight flying Eagle, a little bit understable, will flip up for me, but pretty much just will just fly straight. It's got a little bit of dome to it, so it does move a little bit. Can't go wrong with this disc. I've had it in my bag for a long time for a reason. And then I just have another, this is just a newer Eagle, pretty much same profile, same weight and everything, same plastic, just a little bit newer, so a little bit more overstable. I can throw this thing on any line. I could throw it on forehand if I want to, but I don't really do that very often. It's just, you know, I can throw it on hyzers, I can throw it on hyzer flips, I can throw it on flex shots, turnovers. I can throw it on shots where I want it to turn the whole way for 400 feet, or maybe if I want to put a little bit of anhyzer on it and have it come out, or just straight through the woods. Like, this can do so much. That's why it's such a great disc for me. Last up are the overstable fairways. I'm gonna go with the most overstable first because this is the first one that made it in my bag. This is gonna be a C-Line FD1 from Discmania. Again, I love the C-Line in plastic. So anytime I can find a disc that I like from them, I'm trying to get it in C-Line. This is just overstable. Doesn't have a ton of glide. Like, I'm not pumping this out super far. It's just kind of like that 350 to 400 range when I want to have that hyzer finish. I just want it to finish out and fade out. This is what I'm throwing. Good for forehands, good for backhands. It's just a nice overstable 7-speed. Not a ton of glide, so it's not going to scream past the basket, or the wind's not going to do a whole lot to it. pretty good workhorse disc. And then to complement it, I have a Millennium Vela. This is a pretty new one, and this is, I had like a wonky top one, I think it was called. It was like a flat top Millennium Vela, and it didn't really, it was good, but it didn't really do all that much for me. This has a little bit more dome to it. It's like the actual like Calvin Heimberg run. The flight numbers say it's supposed to be kind of flippy, but it's actually pretty stable out of the box, so it ends up being a bit more stable than my Eagle, but I feel like it's gonna beat in to kind of be just a touch above the Eagle or kind of be in that class with the Eagle. So it's just a nice, stable fairway driver, a little bit less stable than this guy, and it's just kind of starting to beat into a nice hyzer flip disc. All right, those are all the fairways. We're gonna go to control drivers. I only have 3 of these. I know I put tons of different discs in my bag in this slot, and I kind of always end up coming back to the same class of disc because when we get into the 9-speed area, I really don't like to have understable 9-speeds because they just feel redundant. I almost always feel like I can just throw my Eagle or my FD pretty much the same, like from 7 to 9 speed. It's not really doing all that much for me, but there's not really like a 7-speed equivalent of like a Firebird, in my opinion. Like having a Firebird or like a Raptor or something like that is pretty useful, and it's gonna fill a slot that like an FD1 or a Vela is not gonna fill. So I did have like a CD2 or CD1 or whatever it is. I had an Undertaker in my bag. I took those all out because I didn't need them. But the 9 speeds that I do throw, I have 2 Firebirds and 1 Captain's Raptor. So this yellow Firebird right here, I actually bought this like probably 3 or 4 years ago when I first started throwing disc golf discs, and it went on my wall for years. And I just kind of wanted a like slight dome because I always threw flat top Firebirds. I wanted something with like a slight dome so I can have it be a little bit more workable but still overstable and a little bit beat in. So I put this back in my bag. It's kind of just my straighter flying Firebird. I can throw it on forehands and backhands. It'll get a little bit more distance, and it's a bit more workable. I can kind of put it on Anheuser or like get it to ride it flat for a little bit longer, maybe get a little bit of turn out of it. So it's a little bit better for situations like that. And then to complement it, I have total flat top Firebird. This thing is beefy. I'm throwing it on, again, forehands and backhands. Can flex it really hard. It's always gonna fight out for me. Good into the wind, good for finding gaps, getting skip shots. And then just kind of one step higher than that is this Tour Series Paul Ulibarri Z Flex Captain's Raptor. It's just a little bit more overstable than the Firebird. So if I'm just like, say I'm throwing into a crazy headwind, like, or I need a really crazy skip or like a lot of flex, and I'm maybe worried that the Firebird is just gonna like turn over a bit too much, this thing's gonna fight out like crazy. So it's just a little bit more overstable. They're pretty similar discs, but there's just slight situations where I might wanna throw one over the other. Also the Captain's Raptor, you just can't throw it quite as far as you can the Firebird. Before I get on to my distance drivers, I guess I'll show this utility disc I have on the side. I've had this in my bag for quite a while. It's my 170 gram Sidewinder. It's the only not max weight disc I have in my bag. It is a pretty old Champion Sidewinder. I probably got it, I think, in the same order of discs as this Firebird, so it's been around for quite a while. The Sidewinder, this Champion Sidewinder is actually kind of stable for a Sidewinder. It's like not, I can't throw it flat and have it turn into a roller. Like I kind of have to put some angle on it, which is really nice because I can put a ton of power on this and it's gonna roll for a while. Just really fantastic roller disc. I don't use it all that much, but when I'm throwing rollers, I'm pretty much only throwing this. Last up, we have distance drivers. If you know me, you know what I'm throwing. I'm throwing destroyers. I have 6 of them. Let's start with the bottom 3, which are all 2020 Calvin Heimberg Tour Series swirly Star Destroyers. These are pretty hard to get your hands on. I've spent, I think, anywhere from $40 to $70 for a single one of these because they made them years ago and they don't make them anymore, and they fly really good. So I have a bunch of these. I'm pretty much always rotating these as they get beat up and stuff, and I have a whole bunch of extras with me. But generally, I'm gonna have 1 that's pretty understable, and then 2 are a little bit more workable. This is just pretty understable. Good for hyzer flip forehands, good for turnovers, good for hyzer backhands. I can throw it pretty dang far. A step up from that is this yellow one with the sort of green and blue shiny stamp. It's just a little bit more overstable than that one. And then this one I just got my hands on. I've thrown it a couple times. Another yellow one. This one is actually pretty overstable, probably the most overstable of this disc that I've thrown, which is really nice because it's gonna beat in to be a nice, like slightly stable but straight flying destroyer for me, which complements these 2 really well. And then when we go to the more stable ones, we have 3 Halo destroyers. So in lieu of there being all this wind around me right now, this is my most overstable halo destroyer. Just picked this one up. I always put a brand new one in my bag at the start of the season, just so I can be really confident in the wind with it. I can put it on hyzer and do a headwind, and it's gonna finish on hyzer. It's just really overstable. It can get nice skip shots. I can get a decent amount of distance out of it. I can flex it. It's just my most overstable destroyer. That's really all it is. And this is, of course, the 2021 run. I'm also picking up a bunch of these because they're just the best run of overstable halo destroyers. So if you don't have one, try to get your hands on one because they're pretty sick. Then my next down in stability is this is the purple and blue halo destroyer. I believe this is from 2022. It might be from 2023. I think it's 2023. I really can't remember because I have a bunch of them and I get the 22 and 23 years mixed up. This is just a bit less overstable, but like pretty close to that one. I can get a bit more turn out of this one. I can throw it on hyzer and do it a headwind, and it's gonna like actually stand up and turn a little bit, but it will fight back, where this one's probably just gonna get up to flat and then back to hyzer. And then, you know, throwing them without wind, they're just gonna go straight on hyzer. This one's also pretty new, so these will all kind of beat in. I'll rotate them. And, you know, with the destroyers, I'm pretty much always keeping one that's very overstable and one that's very understable in my bag at all times, and then just kind of rotating the ones in between based on how I feel. I have like 20 other extra destroyers that I can rotate in, so I'm always looking for new ones to make sure I can fill those slots, especially for the overstable one, and then just rotating in how I feel from week to week. But the lineup I have right now I feel pretty good about. And last up, we have my super beat up. This is a 2022 Halo Destroyer, and it's been beat up so bad that the plastic is like wearing out at the middle of it, and there's no stamp left on it, and I didn't wipe the stamp off this. I just threw it so much. It's still kind of overstable, but it's kind of like a straight flying destroyer. I can put it on hyzer. It'll go on hyzer the whole way and like not flip up too much. I can put it flat, and it's gonna go almost dead straight and finish out left a little bit, or I can put it on a turnover line. It'll hold turnover and then fight back at the very end. It's honestly pretty overlapping with this guy right here that I just picked up, but this isn't really changing. It's so beat up, it's gonna be pretty much the same for years to come. This is brand new, it's gonna beat in, and so they'll kind of sit right next to each other in terms of stability, but there's a bit of overlap between the two of these, so it's really just gonna be feel depending on which one I throw. So that's it for all the discs in my bag. We have, you know, towel on here to make sure my discs are dry. For days like today where it's windy and rainy, I'm carrying a whole bunch of towels with me. I have a band here to warm up my arm, my shoulder before rounds, some sandpaper. I always keep sandpaper to fix like little chips in my disc, and also any flashing on brand new discs. I like to sand the flashing away because I hate that feeling on my hand, especially when I'm throwing forehands and it's cold. It just rips up my hand. So go to your Lowe's or Home Depot, pick up a thing of like 3 different grits of sandpaper for like 10 bucks, 5 bucks, and just stick it in your bag, and you'll thank yourself. Sharpie for putting my name on new discs. I got a hat in here, an extra mini, an extra dry bag that I'm pretty sure I found on a course. My mini this year, this is a mini I actually won for getting like 3rd or 4th place or something in a putting league I did. It's like an epoxy purple mini with an acorn inside. It's honestly pretty sick. I've been using it a bunch and I think it's super cool. And then on the side over here, you know, lots of OTB pins and iron-ons. Always keeping my nail gene with me. Make sure you stay hydrated. This time of year, I like to have lotion. This is actually Neutrogena hand cream. If you have dry hands, by the way, this Norwegian formula Neutrogena hand cream, pretty sick. Right now, I'd probably be putting it on because my hands are cold and unbelievably dry. I also have a rain fly that I'll put on here for rainy rounds, which I don't have with me, but the Pound Rain Fly, I have a purple one that I put over this. So yeah, it's my in the bag. I'm having a good start to the season. Feeling really confident in all the discs that I'm throwing. Really happy for the season to start. And yeah, keep up with me, see how I'm doing. I'll be trying to vlog some more tournaments coming up. Hopefully get a vlog going for this White Rose Open coming up. And that's pretty much it. See you next time. Peace.